Welcome back, everyone, to the November wrap-up. In case you are unaware of it, November is my favorite month of the year, and apparently that shows because this month I read 28 books. Granted, if you have seen my last video, you know that I went all out on the Christmas novellas, so I'm not going to talk much about those. I'm just going to mention that I read them. If you are interested in my thoughts on that, maybe you check out the Christmas one. I'm going to link it for you down below and after the video. So I'm not going to talk long because we have a lot of books to get through and we don't have all the time in the world. So let's just jump into the first book. We're going to go kind of chronologically because, weirdly enough, I also chronologically read the genres. So we're going to start out with the only fantasy I read, which is Fear the Flames. This is a fantasy book about dragons. Why read Fourth Wing when you can read this? Okay? I loved everything about this book. It was so much fun. You have a princess who, when she was born, there was a prophecy made about her, right? And that prophecy says that she will either destroy her kingdom or save it. The plot twist is that she has 5 dragons who are bound to her, alright? And those dragons are like her ride or die. However, her father, the king, it's kind of giving Sleeping Beauty in that sense, that her father then locks her up because he's so scared of her and the dragons that he separates the two, and then she gets out, but her dragons are still there. So this is her on her way to save her dragons, get them out, and start new alliances and learn how to be the queen that she needs to be in order to get her dragons back. And it's incredible. It's so empowering. I loved every second of it. You have an amazing love interest. Honestly, this is so much fun. If you're looking for a new book with dragons, because honestly, why would you not be looking for a new book with dragons, right? Just maybe pick up this one and be happy about it. It's so much fun. Right, that was it with the fantasy. It was a very short fantasy month. I read so much romance. The next book I read, I don't have a physical copy for, but I read The Handmaid's Tale. I read this when I heard the election results. The first few days of November weren't really me reading a lot because my birthday was on November 4th, right? So I didn't do a lot of reading. And then after all that came out, I was like, okay, I need something to get away. So I read The Handmaid's Tale. I also heard that sales for The Handmaid's Tale went up significantly. Just to get you up on speed if you didn't have to read it in school or if you didn't read it already, The Handmaid's Tale is technically shelved as science fiction and like a dystopian world where only a few selected rich white men have the power, and then they have like a certain system where they have the handmaids who are essentially just breeding wives, and then they have wives, and everybody has like a social status, and they're just trying to keep the population going, but at the same time they're always like realizing that something about this system isn't right, and it's so amazing. There is so much strength in characters. I loved and hated this book at the same time. Loved it because it was so well done. Hated it because it was so hard for me to read, and it really wasn't a fun book to read, right? Sometimes I just have this where I know this is an incredible piece of literature, but it's not a fun book. Thereby, I'm not having fun while reading. So usually, as somebody who rates by fun, I didn't have a lot of fun. But the book was great, so I didn't know what to do. All in all, I was very angry about the outcome of the book, which makes sense, because the book is supposed to make you very angry, right? I really struggle with books that are not just existing for fun. That was The Handmaid's Tale, and then afterwards I was so done that I just went into romance without an end in sight. Okay, there is no end to these romance books because there's 26 of them. So let's dive in. The next book I read is The Next Best Fling. This is a librarian NFL player romance where both of them are in love with a different person at the beginning of the book. So his brother is getting married, right? But he has a thing for the girl his brother is marrying, and she has a thing for his brother. Okay, that's where we're starting this story off. We're starting off strong with him trying to sabotage the wedding, going up to the wife and telling her, you know what, I have feelings for you. And then she's there and she's like, you know what, dude? Don't do that. However, she then brings him home with her because he's just staying at his brother's house, right? So the next morning at the breakfast that they're all having, everybody thinks that they hooked up. So they're just pretending to be like into each other in order for them not to ruin the other relationship. But of course, something comes of this and it's beautiful, it's fun. I had a great time reading this one. I especially enjoyed the banter between the two. It was kind of cute. What I didn't really enjoy was how this book ended. So there is a conflict that comes up, right, later in the book. And I just think that conflict, it didn't need to be there. If you want to read it, I can definitely recommend you do, because it was fun. Now after that, I read another monster romance. I only read one this month, so I think I'm kind of proud of myself in that. This was The Demon's Queen. However, this was not it. Okay, I didn't have a great time. This is technically the 6th book in a book series I read last month, where you have like these demons that make deals with humans and then they bring the humans back to the demon realm. It's a lot. Stuff happens. I read the entire series except for the last one, and then the last one came out this month and I was like, sure, let's read it, and it wasn't the best thing ever, so I did not have the greatest time. It was alright. Okay, it was alright, it wasn't great. It was hardly good. The more I say, the worse the book gets, so let's just move on. Because next, I read Lost and Lassoed. This is the 3rd book in the Done and Dusted series. It's incredible. I love this series. These books are incredibly short, so if you're wanting to pick them up, it's very easy to do so. They are small town cowboy romances. This one specifically is kind of like an enemies to lovers nanny situation where she is looking after his kid because she's just been fired from her job because the store that she used to work at closed, but they've known each other all their life because they've grown up in the same hometown, and somehow they absolutely despise each other. And for once, I didn't feel the cringe, okay? Usually, when I read enemies to lovers in romance book, I'm like a little bit cringing inside out, okay? Because I personally think that enemies to lovers should be reserved for the fantasy books and nothing else. This, however, fun. Fun, fun, fun. This child is adorable. Children in books are so cute. Anyway, this book is fun, it's enjoyable, it's lovable, as always, it's a little spicy, it's cute, small town romance, cowboy romance. What more could you want? Honestly, what more could you want? And then, before we jump into a huge series that I read, start to finish, we're going into Hexed. Hexed by Emily McIntyre is the 6th book in the Hooked series, which is kind of like the Never After novels. So these are all twisted fairy tales. In case you can't tell, this is kind of an Ariel story, right? But this is also my favorite book by Emily McIntyre. So if you read Hooked and you were like, maybe that's not for me, read Hexed. Hexed was fun. What's with all the animals making noises today? So this one is kind of like a forbidden love, arranged marriage situations, but he's not arranged to be married to her, but to her cousin. These two are not supposed to like each other, and for some reason, this was relatable, okay? It's giving mafia romance in the best scenario ever. I also love the fact that her last name is Andersen, and the original fairy tale was by Hans Christian Andersen, who is a German guy who wrote the fairy tale, right? It's very fun. I absolutely adored this. You don't need to read any of the other books to understand what's going on in this one, okay? They don't depend on each other, okay? So they're completely separate books. So if you want to pick up any of Emily McIntyre's book, please pick up this one because it is my favorite of hers ever. And I've read them all. Anyway, enough about this. Let's move on to Daphne Perry. Now, I read the entirety of the Eden series. I only have the first 2 books here, but I'm only gonna mention the series as the series itself. I'm not gonna go in depth in any of these books, because not only did I read this series, the Edens, no, I also read the Clifton Forge series. All of the books, except for the last 2, because I couldn't deal with them. I couldn't read those. I tried, I had to DNF them, because of the cheating trope. Anyway, let's roll it back to the beginning and talk about the Eden series. This is a series about a family who has 6 children, okay? 6 siblings who are falling in love in each of these books. These are small town romance, all of them, right? In this first one, we have a mixture of the Chestnut Springs series and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. How is that possible, you ask? I don't know, but it is. She's a cop who comes to this small town. There's a series of suicides that have been going on for years and years, and she is the only person in town who's like, that's kind of fishy, you know? So she kind of goes and tries to figure out what happened. It's amazing. Each of these has a little more of a mystery aspect than your typical romance book, but this one is just the biggest on the mystery, okay? Because she is a cop. So anyway, I read this entire series. There's 6 books in this, and they were all amazing. Like, truly, deeply, they were amazing. Now, with these, you need to read them in chronological order, because otherwise you're gonna be confused, because they actually are interconnected. Now, the order is Indigo Ridge. Next you go to Juniper Hill. After that, Garnet Falls, Jasper Vale, Crimson River, and last but not least, Sable Peak. And then there's also 2 novellas that I also read. That is one, A Christmas Story. Like, it's technically the prequel of how the parents met, so that's kind of cute if you want to get into this. However, it's very short. It's like a novella. Sure, it's cute, but it's nothing extraordinary. And then you have The Legacy, which is this one, right? It's just a short thing of what happens after, of the kids. It's kind of cute. I liked this one as well, but again, this is only if you've read the entire series and you are like, wow, I like this a lot. This was so much fun. Because let's be honest, this series is so much fun. And then after that, I read the Clifton Forge series, which is kind of a series about different members of a motorcycle club that kind of broke apart, and now they're just kind of fixing cars. And there's a lot of mystery going on because they still have this enemy gang, kind of, that they are still rivaling, and there's a lot going on. It's a lot. This is also a mixture of like crime and romance, which is very fun. Now, I'm not going to tell you what each of these books are about specifically. However, I'm going to tell you that these are fun, again, up until the 4th book. You can read the first 4 books, and after that I struggled again because book 5 and book 6 both include the cheating trope in a way. I don't want to read that. It just gives me an icky feeling, and I don't like it. It's like a cheap excuse for a fight in a book. It's horrible enough when it happens in real life. I don't need it in books. Anyway, these books are fun, and if you can look over the cheating trope, you can read all of them and be happy. Now, I read one more book before I went into my Christmas book readathon thing, so this one was something else, okay? If you are not into taboo romances, this is not for you, okay? Because this is a romance where she falls in love with her uncle. He's technically an adopted uncle, but he's still her uncle, and she regularly calls him her uncle, which I thought was very weird. This was one of the moments where I was so glad that, for me, spicy scenes are super fictional. Like, they're at the same level as dragons, because I don't want either in real life, right? I would want a dragon. Dragons are better, right? That's kind of where I'm at. So for me, it was so far in the fictional world that it didn't seem like it could be possible in reality. But let me tell you about the book. It's a small town, kind of grumpy cowboy-ish romance. He used to be a bull rider, and now he lives on this property that she inherited from her dad, who died, and then she goes to live there away from her ex-husband, I think. It's been a lot. It's also been some time since I read this, but again, it wasn't an amusing book, okay? It was fun. I'm not saying that it was good, because it clearly wasn't, but it was a fun time to an extent, because at the same time I was kind of cringing. But if you don't mind that, if you love taboo romances, because we don't judge here, pick it up. It's fun. It's the 2nd book in the series. The first one I liked a little better. I have to say that. I like the first one better. Alright, and now we go into the Christmas romances. Again, I'm gonna link the video for you, so you can just check it out. But I'm just gonna briefly name drop the books and say if I like them or not. So, this is Make the Season Bright. I enjoyed this one. This is a very queer Christmas romance, which I personally adored. How My Neighbor Stole Christmas, which was a no for me. And then all of these novellas, which were all fun. These were all a fun, good time. I had a great time reading them. If you want to know more about them, again, how about you check out the Christmas video that I made. And with that, we're done. We talked about every single book that I read last month. And I know that there were a lot. For some reason, I thought that in the beginning of the month, I didn't do well with my reading goal. And then I popped off in the middle and I was just like going up and not stopping. I had to force myself to not read a book yesterday because I was just like, you've read so much. Stop. Please stop.
Stop it. Get some help.
Like, it's not good for me to read more books than days in a month. That's just not a thing that I'm interested in doing. However, I'm like at the brink of it. I have, however, not reached my reading goal for the month. However, I will definitely be doing that in December. But it is at 250 books, and I'm scared. Okay, I'm gonna do it, but I'm scared. Anyway, that was my wrap up. Please, as always, leave a like so that I can see that you like this video, and tell me about your favorite book that you read in November down in the comments below. Until next time, I will say goodbye to you, and I will see you soon. Bye! How do I do this? Why do I do this? Why is reading my only coping mechanism? Sometimes I wish it really wasn't, but it is, and I can't stop. You know what I'm gonna do now? That's right, I'm gonna read. Bye!